Hello and welcome to The Hill is Always Greener, a show where four friends have chill discussions about Sonic the Hedgehog to distract themselves from the inevitable passage of time and their own rapidly waning ability to relate to the youth, and also all the horrible love in the world and the joy shared by others that is very distracting and horrible to us. I am Falero.
Bah humbug, I'm Game Buddy.
I'm married, I'm Rock the Jake.
Yeah, no time for romance anymore then. Ordinarily we would have Cyberlink 420 with us, Luke, but unfortunately he has been kidnapped by Metal Sonic. Oh, he has the cooties. That's right. Oh yeah, you updated the thing. That's very good. Yeah, he's out sick with cooties and kidnapped by Metal Sonic. But joining us in his place this time is my friend, and a very pleasant Canadian individual. Everybody please greet Akaru.
Hello, I'm Akaru. Woo. You may know me from passing mentions here once or twice.
The myth, the legend, now in reality.
Akaru is a magical fellow. He is from the land of Canada. And the reason I brought him onto this podcast is, yes, I have brought him up in the past as having an extraordinarily unique history with Sonic the Hedgehog. He is a young man. He is in his 20s, which is weird to have on our podcast of old people. And in the past, I made a small comic about him having a harem of girls around him. And that's what ties into today's topic, but we'll get to that. So, thank you for joining us, Akaru.
I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
I believe before we get started with the main topic, we wanted to talk a little bit about Sonic-y things. We try not to talk about it too much because we record this podcast ahead in advance. So by the time it comes out, most of what we're talking about is no longer relevant. But Jeremy, you had something you wanted to mention, right?
Yes, just quickly mention, because I think by the time this one comes out, there'll still be some time to get your pre-orders in. But Discotech, anime distribution company that is pretty famous now for rescuing very obscure titles and like abandoned licenses, previously put out a Sonic X set. It's very nice. It's the best way to watch that show, but unfortunately it was only the English dub, which, you know, I just flat out don't like. That's fine. That's neither here nor there. But recently announced they are putting out a Japanese subtitled Sonic X set, all 78 episodes in the highest quality possible. They've talked about they've done some restoration to make them look as best as they can be. New things like they've updated the subtitles from like the official ones that were on like streaming releases. I even recognize a couple of people who have done those subtitles. Shouts out to them. They've worked with like different set kinds of masters, so it's going to look really nice. They've used the 5.1 audio where they've got it. They've confirmed that, Live and Learn is still in episode 38, and all kinds of good stuff like that. But all that to say that, like, please, if you are able, support this release. I definitely am putting my money where my mouth is for a lot of reasons. Supporting a Sonic X came out in 2003, and that's a pretty old, like, kids anime to be putting out. And so, like, supporting that release is definitely going to put a bug in whoever's ear to get, like, the rest of the Sonic shows, like Sat AM and Underground. And, I mean, God willing and the creek don't rise, someday we will get a Sonic OVA release. I know there's lots of licensing issues with that one, but hey, just wanted to say Sonic X Japanese, buy the set. It's gonna be great. I can't say I can guarantee it, but I'm pretty darn sure compared with Discotech's other releases. So I'm excited. Don't miss it.
We are legally obligated. No, not really, but we have to support. We have to tell people to support this. This is what the Bridge series creators have to do. They have to be like, please support the official release, but no, really this time, because
yes,
a lot has happened as a result of dubbing and making fun of this show. So I'm glad it's out there. I'm glad we've got a Japanese version. No offense, this is not a weeb thing where we're like, oh, English dubs, disgusting. No, like, the Japanese version is its original form, like, visually, as well as, like, in terms of audio. Plus, whole different soundtrack as well. Like, man.
Yes, there are people out there who don't know about Sonic Drive. Oh my gosh. And, it really is like, I'm thankful to say that it is one of those rare things where like the English dub was almost nothing like the original. And so now people are going to be able to experience the Japanese version in the, the best possible presentation. So I'm excited for that.
Akaru, did you have any experience with Sonic X?
I do. Not many memories of it because it's been a long time since I've actually sat down and watched it. But I do remember them playing baseball once. So
Yes.
Yep. There are quite a few of those. Just the gang does, slice of life anime stereotype episode. Let's play baseball. Let's go to the beach 3 or 4 times. But it's all in good fun.
Please support it, because these sort of things don't really do well, apparently. Subtitled kids anime. So, Jake, did you have something you wanted to talk about?
Yes, mine should be pretty quick, but I recently started playing Sonic Dash on mobile phone again. I remember playing it when it was fairly new, and I remember playing the heck out of it until I didn't really have much left to do in it, and I just kind of dropped it. But I don't know, like some sort of weird little brainworm got in my head recently to check it out again, and it's been fun to get back into it, and especially with like some of the updates that have happened throughout the years, because I forget how many years old it is at this point, but it's cool that it's still supported, and there's, it's getting my gotcha brain of trying to get new characters easily. Oh, okay, Luke,
He's our silent producer today.
Yes.
Yes. He has informed me through telepathic waves from being kidnapped by Metal Sonic that that the game was published in 2013. So, wow. But yeah, all that to say, it's fun to get back into it, and it's a fun little like time filler game for when you're at work and there's nothing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that one and what is it? Sonic Forces Speed Battle are both like fun little mobile games. Like they definitely encourage you to spend real money, but is not as devious as a lot of other like gotcha style games. So that's nice too. And like, hey, that's where like Tangle and Whisper from the IDW comics showed up in like full 3D video game form, which is super cool.
Well, I've never played it, but I'm going to assume it's good, and I'm glad that some sort of like some sort of app-based game is surviving and that's just not been completely abandoned, and everyone's investment has not paid off whatsoever, as we often see in the modern day of gaming. But that is a topic for another time. I think it is time to get to today's topic, and that one, well, okay, so it's not, by the time of recording, it is probably past Valentine's Day, that time of year where you know what, I was going to go into like some really boring kind of like, corporations, gift cards companies, blah, blah, blah. And that is legitimately how I feel, but I'm not going to do that this time. But basically, even though it's the end of February, we wanted to talk about something vaguely romantic. We wanted to talk about Sonic and love interests. Now, hang on, before you run off. Understandable.
Leave.
Now, I know this sounds like the most basic Sonic YouTuber topic, right? Who's the best Sonic love interest? Which girl is best? Your waifu is trash. Shipping wars, and so on and so forth. That's not what we're here for today. Now, whether we get down that route, well, that remains to be seen. But what we're actually here to discuss, like the various Sonic love interests, and whether Sonic should even have a love interest to begin with, because that is an actual matter of debate amongst the Sonic fandom. And I think that's more interesting than discussing each of the individual love interests. But we're going to do that as well. But yeah, thank you for joining us on this particularly strange topic. We didn't do a lot of research for this one because we didn't need to. We just made a list of girls. That's not necessarily true. But yes. Okay. But thank you for joining us today, Akaru. How do you feel about Sonic romance in general?
Well, I don't have any particular opinions on who Sonic should love, I guess. But I mean, when I was younger, I saw Amy, and that was my my media consumption of girl in media. So I was like, oh, she's cute, I like her. So I'm glad that there are characters of whom share affections for Sonic, not necessarily.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, someone I can relate to. But I don't have any particular bold stances on whether or not Sonic should be with anyone in particular, I suppose.
I kind of agree. Like with everything we're going to talk about, like in fun, like at the end of the day, I also I don't have any particular feelings in either direction. I think it is fun to talk about, but I guess, I mean, part of it is, I am way past the age to actually have a verbal altercation with someone over a Sonic ship. But I remember the times where that was the norm amongst our it was less like social media and more all of the individual message boards we were part of. And I remember some, gosh, I don't know if they ever escalated to a traditional flame war where, mods had to step in and lock the topic, but I remember some heated discussions.
That's kind of where we start from this is, should Sonic even have love interests at all? Because these days, doesn't seem to happen in Sonic media at all. That seems to be I don't know for sure. I'm not one of the people who's privy to these things, but it might actually be a Sega mandate that Sonic's not allowed to do romance anymore. And I don't want to say that I blame Archie Sonic for that, but I will say maybe they had a hand in Sega stepping in and saying, no more of this, please.
I think that is definitely a true statement to say that Archie was part of it. And you got this first part right here, and I think if I had to say, I do actually like the, if Sonic is not going to be quote unquote allowed to have a romantic relationship, I do kind of looking at it at the lens that he is asexual or aromantic, because I think that fits. Not only does it kind of fit the boring corporate answer of well, no, our mascot can't have a relationship that personal, but I think it does kind of fit a lot of the interactions Sonic has with his friends, that he is incredibly loyal, he is incredibly loving in every way, but a romantic way that just kind of seems to fly over his head in some situations. We're gonna get to it, but Sonic 06 and Secret Rings, it seems like he is very much, he is the friend that is there that person needs, but also seems completely oblivious to any romantic affections. Now, whether that's intentional or not is a a point of contention. But I do like to think that Sonic is just uninterested in romance for whatever reason, but also is not going to be he never wants to hurt anybody's feelings. That is how I choose to interpret, spoilers if you've never seen it, but the original finale of Sonic X is Sonic comes back to his world. To his world.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, exactly. I'm already hearing the edit in my head. After, all his friends thought, oh no, he's still trapped on Earth. And Amy is very upset, basically lays her whole heart out there. I never thought I'd see you again, starts crying. And then the music gets brought up and Sonic says something, but we don't hear it. But it was obviously exactly what Amy needed to hear right then. And
it's a lost in translation moment.
But anyway, so I like that angle for Sonic sometimes. If he's, the corporate mandate is he cannot have a romantic relationship. Well, why not spin it into a cool headcanon that he's, just aromantic or whatever.
I do like that because the very idea that they make him asexual, aromantic as a result of a corporate mandate and not a part of his actual, a real personality.
Oh, no.
Because there are people out there with, who have perfectly full lives being asexual, aromantic, and to be okay, we need to make this character as bland as possible. Let's give him this sexuality.
Yes, I wanted to try and avoid because I do not want to step on the toes, especially of any of my friends who that is part of their identity, because it is not something I'm 100% familiar with. And also don't That, I mean, I am also chuckling at the concept of, like the Sega corporate board making decisions. Like, what, what are the kids doing these days?
They sure ain't having sex. So.
It seems that they're sad and making TikToks.
Goodness gracious.
But yeah, I like, as far as Sonic as we know him now, I feel like, I don't think they'd say that whether he's asexual or aromantic, but it's I kind of see it there, even if it is as a result of just like them deciding that we can't have any of that romance bollocks anymore. Mm-hmm. But like you were saying, Jeremy, it's nice to sort of put this headcanon out there to maybe just give Sonic a bit more identity to it, because it's a perfectly I know people will be like, well, it's not really appropriate to discuss what Sonic's sexuality is, and I say, yes, well, these are normal things that kids should be learning about. I'm not saying that, like, Sonic should be Sonic should be there to sort of like, hey, kids, if you ever feel like exploring your own sexuality, that's cool.
No, but yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, it is one of the, it's not to go on a tangent, but I'll just mention that, that is part of the double standard of, like, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, like, has him doing, like, Looney Tunes bug eyes over, like, Breezie and, girls at the beach. And it's like, that is, like, an expression of sexuality, romance, whatever. It's just, it's quote unquote normal. And so we don't think about it. So yeah, it would be perfectly appropriate to confirm that for Sonic. But I'm not saying they should. I'm saying, like, at the end of the day, that's my favorite interpretation to think of Sonic, that he is very outward with his friendship and positivity and those emotions, but is just not interested in actual romance. And even Luke in the chat brings up that Evan Stanley, who is now the head writer and one of the artists on IDW, talks about their likes to think of Sonic as just very private with his very personal emotions. And I think that fits Sonic too. Like, there are lots of interpretations of Sonic, including one of my new favorites is STC Sonic, who I think you could say that's literally canon. Is very
that's where I have to come in and be like, yes, that Sonic is not forthcoming with his emotions at all, probably isn't interested in romance, just cares about his friends. He's just not going to tell you that.
Yeah. I think that fits a lot of different Sonics. I think Sad AM Sonic is kind of like that too. Like, he comes across as kind of a dumb guy, but it's really that he is not. He lacks emotional intelligence compared to Sally, who balances him out. I remember we talked about that when we revisited that show, and how it's a very pleasant dynamic. It actually works really well.
Yeah,
I do think. But in the case of Sat AM Sonic, he is interested in girls, or more specifically, he's interested in Sally. That is definitely a case, because those two have that sort of balanced relationship. She's almost like the secondary protagonist, or almost like the balanced protagonist to him. So this is a situation where Sonic has time to have this sort of relationship with another character, because they're constantly doing things together. They're constantly out there trying to save the world. So it kind of checks out for that version of Sonic. Akaru, do you have any thoughts as to relates to how Sonic is romantically inclined? Actually, no, we asked your opinions, but what do you think is actually happening with Sonic these days?
Well, with Sonic and love, at the end of the day, I think Sonic is just a guy who loves adventure. So,
what you see is what you get.
He's Sonic the Hedgehog.
Amen.
But yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think that he'd probably be a romantic or something. Just he doesn't really have a strong preference on it. That's at least the way I interpret him in most of modern media. Obviously, like you touched on with Sat AM and Archie comics per se. There's definitely romance in there. Whether or not that's the direction they want to take Sonic nowadays, or not.
Judging by what, when we talk about Sonic these days, we talk about the modern games and IDW in particular, because as we understand it, that's one where Sega has had the most direct input in as far as the Sonic comics are concerned. So what we're seeing here is more or less what Sega want from Sonic, and we haven't really seen anything like that. Now, maybe it is because he did go out and spend like nearly a year trying to save the world from a metal virus, and he didn't really have time for anything like that. I don't know.
He, I think the IDW does a good bit, and we can obviously bring that up because she's on this list too, where they still acknowledge like Amy Rose herself obviously still has a crush on Sonic, but especially the way it's done in IDW, I think is very smart, because I think Sega also as a whole, I'm sure realized that like, oh, we should probably like give Amy any kind of personality outside of being obsessed with Sonic. So yeah, she still acknowledges that. Sonic acknowledges it too, but is also very like you said, especially during the IDW, is like, look, I ain't got time to hang out. Okay. lots of bad things are happening. But also, yes, like acknowledging it, but not making that the sole facet of Amy's personality. And so I really like it. It's very subtle. It's a good nod to, past adventures and whatnot.
I think what it comes down to is, do Sonic games and Sonic stories even need romance? Now, if we're talking about, again, sorry to dunk on early Archie, but I'm just saying, early Archie really liked having that. Well, I mean, it's an Archie comic, I suppose. What did we expect? It's right there in the title.
Yes.
But they certainly liked that love triangle-y stuff. But do Sonic stories, these adventures where Sonic goes up against a maniacal dictator sometimes, or just a mad scientist for the most part, do they really need romantic exploits going on in the background?
It's like you said, given the history of the entire franchise as a whole, it makes me want to say no. But at the same time, I'm like, I think you could do it. It would just take a really a really committed, smart writer to make it work. I think it would work better if it was not solely focused on Sonic, or even like maybe even the main cast. Like I've brought it up constantly, but I love
going to bat for them again.
yes. I love what Archie did with the with Bunnie and Antoine near the right before that got even after the reboot. I think they were still together, because those are characters that were, I mean, definitely main characters, but also like it in no way like detracted. In fact, it was the opposite. It added to like their interactions with the other cast. So
as far as like the question for, do Sonic stories need romance? And we've been talking about this for a while now. Like as far like, since Sonic is part of all sorts of different mediums of entertainment, for games, I would have to say not really, no, because just the momentum of Sonic games particularly, I don't think it really lends itself to like a romance story or even a romance side story. I feel like it clashes with the goal of the game too much to try to include that. But I think like either now or more so in the future, I think there's room for it. I think the IDW comics have been doing a good job of just character building, world building, and letting Sonic be just the hero who steps in and saves the day kind of thing. One of my thoughts is that I do think that there is room for romance in the story with Sonic, and hear me out on this one.
Oh boy.
Because with where we are now as like a culture and meme alert, as a society, in 2022/23, I feel like with our writing styles nowadays, I think we actually, like Jeremy said, if we have like a really good, competent writer who is willing to take the risk and be smart about it, I think we actually have a chance to do a romance story that adds to Sonic and whoever his partner is, that romance. And I think we have a chance to flip it so that Sonic's not the hero in that case, where I just think that there's a possibility of basically doing a story where Sonic needs to be saved, but he's not necessarily the damsel in distress at the same time, where we just don't go for that trope, where there's some sort of addition to the story and the relationship where one person doesn't have their power stripped away from them necessarily. I think there's a lot of possibilities there. And honestly, with the way that Sonic acts in the new movies from Paramount and Sega, Sonic, I think, is his most teen-like in those movies, and teens are all about hormones and relationships. And if they eventually add Amy into there, I actually see a distinct possibility of like a kindling on-screen romance between Sonic and Amy.
That's a good point.
If there was a modern version of Sonic that would play up that, it would be movie Sonic. And I could imagine it being like fitting pretty well. Like, like you said, it would be like Disney Channel original-esque, like, silly romance, but that would definitely fit movie Sonic well. I think you're right, Jake, as far as like, even, like you mentioned, like, I really like the writing on IDW. I like all of the writers that have contributed. It's not just Ian and Evan. It's others as well, and it's all been really solid. It's a team. They work really well together, and I know they have talked like behind the scenes of like ideas. But I think you're right, especially like even if it wasn't Sonic, like if IDW came out with an issue like, and not spoiling any like current arcs, but like, hey, like Tangle and Whisper like just walked up holding hands and said, oh yeah, we've been dating for a month now, like that would be totally appropriate and fit into that world. And yeah. I feel like they're probably just waiting for like the right time to do something like that, because I'm sure, like you said, you said earlier, Falero, like Sega has had a lot of input with IDW, which I think is probably the best way to talk about it. Like people like to use the word mandates, like it's they have no creative control. They're stifling what they're doing. And I don't think that's the case. I think it is a combination of like, they are just more hands-on with how they even want like the spin-off media to be. And, they're probably just waiting for like the right time to do something like that. And, I bet when it happens, Sega will let it happen. I'm putting that out into the universe.
I don't think Sega are all opposed again to romance in Sonic, because when we get into this list, we'll see there are examples of it. I just don't know if that's what they're doing right now, but maybe you're right. Maybe it's when the time is right.
When the love is in the air.
Yeah. Akaru, do you have any thoughts about whether the Sonic games need romance?
I don't think they need romance. I don't think that's why I'm buying the Sonic game, but I don't think it's necessarily bad to have like it be part of like the story. I just don't think it needs to be like the main focus of it. Like
sorry, you were saying?
It's okay. I'm very okay with like the idea of like Sonic having someone that he's like, you know what, I like that they're there for me or whatever, and something like that, or just having like some sort of romance in them. I'm not like going into the game being like, I want Sonic to get a smooch today. I want him to just be in love so much.
Yeah.
So.
Not until we get the Sonic dating sim of 2025. Yeah. I don't know.
Sonic speed dating.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
that's it.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Oh man.
Oh, that's gotta be out there somewhere, like buried in the grimy back alleys of Newgrounds. I'm sure.
I can't imagine it doesn't exist in some form.
What if Sega just went buck wild one day and made like just like for Steam, like for like $5 or $10, just a Sonic dating sim?
I mean, who knows? I mean, that it's part of this list, but they did give Sonic to BioWare romance branching options, and that didn't really pan out. And now they own Atlas.
We can briefly talk about Sonic Chronicles, because BioWare was handling it, everyone was thinking, oh, how are they going to Mass Effect this? Are they going to have love interests? Yeah, Amy.
Kind of. I have not revisited Chronicles yet. I think that is a potential topic for the future, but I did see that I think it boils down to you can either be really nice to Amy, and kind of string her along. You can be neutral to Amy, or you can just be a real bastard to her. An E10 ages 10 and up bastard.
the culmination of which you get one scene with Amy that's romantic, and it's just that.
I even remember, like Rouge is there too and has some like patented Rouge flirty dialogue. And the only thing it does is if you are like nice to Rouge, it makes Amy mad, which, implications. We don't have to pair two bad bitches up against each other. Unnecessary. But yes, the only one that came any close to that was Chronicles, and then not really, but it's pretty funny.
That's the only potentially almost canonical instance of Son Amy.
Yes.
Is that one scene that you might get if you're really nice to Amy throughout the whole game. To the point of it being really unnatural and weird, I noticed in my playthrough.
That is another part of like, yeah, I wouldn't mind that Sonic romance being part of it if it's done well, because so many of it, even like you said, even in like Chronicles, an official thing seems like so out of character sometimes. And at the end of the day, especially if it's like fan art, fan works, whatever, it's like being in character doesn't super matter, but that is part of it that just kind of puts me off the subject.
That's pretty much our preface to this whole topic. Let's get to the part that everyone came for. Let's talk about each individual Sonic love interest that we can think of. Now, sorry if we don't mention your favorite. It's just because we don't care about them.
But I mean, looking at this list, like with my encyclopedic Sonic knowledge, I don't see if we missed any. And, we didn't count like characters that were never real, like Tiara Bubowski. Like, she doesn't count. She barely
even
exists.
know that she was a love interest. I mean, I suppose she was a girl in a Sonic game, so I suppose it was implied during that time period that she would have to be a love interest. We don't have any examples. The game never happened.
No.
So, whatever. So let's start with a character who never actually appears in the game at all. Starting from a sheerly chronological standpoint, we have to start with Madonna. Now, I am not talking about the famous Madonna that famously had a real-life romantic relationship with Weird Al, if we go by his biopic. We are talking about Madonna, the blonde-haired, Jessica Rabbit-esque character that appeared in like concept art for Sonic 1, where Naoto Oshima was just like, yeah, I mean, Sonic would have a beautiful girl with big boobies, right? And,
yeah, that's a cool guy, right? She is just a Jessica Rabbit, right? I mean, she has like different hair, but she is definitely that same mold. I mean, even to go further, back, like she is the Red Hot Riding Hood, Tex Avery cartoon wolf.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Auga. And I mean, that's about it. Like, I don't want to denigrate her character, but she literally never appeared in anything official. Well, I don't want to say that too distinctly. She might have. I think, Jake, you pointed out, like, the only other interesting tidbit is that a character with a similar haircut appears in one Archie special, Madonna
Garnet.
Yes, Madonna Garnet, and I'm willing to bet that they plucked that design and put her together because they weren't allowed to use Topaz from the Sonic X universe, because she looks like her long lost Topaz twin. But yeah, Madonna Garnet, she was only officially ever appeared in one single Archie story.
And it's just the hair, hair and the first name is all she has in common with the Madonna that we're talking about. Now, if we're going to discuss whether Madonna makes a good love interest or not, it depends on how much of a purist to the vision of Naoto Oshima you really are. And whether you feel that Sonic not having a girlfriend, not having fangs, and not having a cool band to play in the sound test is really integral towards his character and should never have been omitted from the final product.
Yes, shout outs to the various bunny and cat girls in the crowd of that Sonic band performance as well.
we all read the Sonic Bible, and Madonna was nowhere in there. So
Yes. It just seems like a very silly thing to tack on. Like, it's pretty harmless. Again, it seems like it's very much going for like the Roger Rabbit dynamic. Even this art we're looking of apparently is, Madonna like thinking about Sonic, but he's like scolding her for giving him too many kisses. So like, yes, this is obviously done in a very like tongue-in-cheek manner, I think.
Now, she is a human woman, and I know the concept of a human woman having a relationship with a Sonic character is a divisive topic within the Sonic fandom. But she's a cartoon. She's a stretched out Betty Boop. She's not like a real woman. Boy, that picture that Luke just shared in the chat is... I'm starting to see why Madeline Schroeder stepped up and be like, none of this, please.
Yes.
Because this is a picture of Madonna falling from the heavens, and there is an interesting choice of angle, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the technical demo presented in Tokyo Toy Show 1990, and never made it into the final game. I'm wondering why.
What a tragedy.
Akaru, do you have any thoughts about Madonna?
Not really. I mean, she's a concept art character, more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, she's cute, I guess. I don't know if she's a great fit for Sonic per se, but
Yeah, and there is, as Luke is also pointing out, there is like a quote attributed to Yuji Naka that they didn't want to immediately go with the like kidnapped girlfriend Princess Peach thing because so many other games aside from Mario just did that, so just decided to focus on the conflict between Sonic and Dr. Eggman.
But what we could have had.
Yeah.
They wanted to wait until 2006 to do that trope.
Yep.
Yeah, they do bring it back.
Yep. That's on the list.
I'm starting to realize why they called it Sonic the Hedgehog now. They were like, we're going back to Sonic's roots. His real roots.
Yep.
Oh, man.
That's about all the time we can possibly dedicate to Madonna.
Yes.
But she's a pretty lady.
Yeah.
She seems like the sort of character that... No, I'm not going to get into Mr. Boop territory.
I was thinking about it when you brought up Stretched Up.
Yep.
When you look at there is a Mr. Betty Boop in Alec Robbins style.
Yep. I remember there's two characters in Mr. Boop named Sonic the Hedgehog. People should read that. It is not safe for work, but very funny. I'm saying that as someone who owns all of the hard copies and wants that collected version too.
Let's talk about an equally important character these days, Sally Acorn. Sorry, I made myself laugh on that. Sally Acorn, the old favourite. Now, when we say Sally Acorn, like, we've gone down the rabbit hole of where Sally Acorn came from, which was the Sonic Bibles. Lots of things came from that, but the character we're typically talking about when we mention Sally Acorn is the one from Sat AM and basically the one from Archie who sort of spawned from that.
So not the one that Sonic pulled out his signature Smith & Wesson and fired into the air as he made out with her.
No, not that one.
Or the one that he refused to let speak and then dropped a bunch of Christmas presents on.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think, yes, when we're talking about Sally, even though she has also had some big redesigns, we're talking about the red-haired, chestnut fur-colored squirrel / whatever she's supposed to be at any given time. I think
not the blonde one that Luke has linked in the chat from the early concept art of the Sonic cartoon.
And also not the blonde one from the early Archie miniseries, and not the pink one that was also in several things.
Not even the little squat brown one that was the design they settled on in early Archie either, or even in the pilot episode of Sat AM. We're talking about the Sally Acorn, whose character changed with her design, I think.
Yes.
They're talking about that Sally Acorn, the headstrong, the really smart, super talented, everyone loves her. Oh gosh, it's Sally Acorn, everyone. She's so wonderful, Sonic. Anyway, it's that's Sally Acorn that we're talking about.
Yes. And like I started to go into earlier, I will go to bat for like the best episodes of Sat AM are the ones where Sonic and Sally like complement each other, where she is like more tactful and, you know, like we revisited Blast to the Past, where she's the one that figures out the riddle from the owl time spirit, whereas Sonic, he's not necessarily too dumb to get it. It's just that is not his strength. He is Mr. Man of Action. He is he's literally the guy with superpowers, but he needs somebody like Sally to balance him out because especially in Sad AM, like you see that like Sonic is not like all powerful. Like if he runs straight into a group of SWAT bots, they are going to get him. And so he needs somebody like Sally to say like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to blow up this power plant. And I really like that part. It's now the romance in Sad AM doesn't hold up well for me at all. Like I have brought it up before. I immediately think of the episode where they find the underground freedom fighters with Griff, the Griffin Man, or whatever he is. He's more like a...
Is he a goat?
I guess he's a goat. Griff. He does look like a goat, but he also kind of looks like a fawn or like some kind of like Taurus, or it's an interesting design compared to like, Ari the Ram just straight up looks like, a ram dude. Yeah. He's got a nice voice. I'll say that about him. But yes,
don't like the hooves. Sorry.
That's what throws me off. Where I'm like, that's Mr. Tumnus is what that makes me.
I'm sorry. Like so many of these characters, don't necessarily follow the Sonic style guide. But if you're looking at Griff, listeners, this guy is especially naked, I think.
Yeah, well, even this picture that we're looking at, he's standing next to Antoine, who is, unique, but also like wears a full set of clothes. So it does look a little off. But I always think of that episode when I think of bad Sad AM romance, because it is a contrived, forced, like love square between Sally, Sonic, Antoine, and Griff that takes up half the episode. And even as I was 8 or 9 watching my VHS with this on, it was just like, come on, when are we getting to the fireworks factory? Anyway, that's basically all I have to say about Sad AM romance, is that the Sonic and Sally's dynamic is very good, but wow, it's so contrived, and you just are waiting for, is this an episode where Anton's gonna bust in and be like, I love Sally more than you, Sonic. Let's waste our precious time in this 22-minute episode.
I just, you know what? Like, you're right. What it comes down to, though, is in many ways, the Sonic and Sally relationship is like one of the most developed. And I think that's not just because of Sad AM, but because of the time in Archie. Now, it wasn't always good, but I felt like, they had like this good thing going. It was like a realistic relationship.
Yes.
For the most part. If as far as two 90s written cartoon animals could have a realistic relationship, I suppose. It was definitely the one that had the most time put into it.
We definitely can't dive into the entire history of the Archie comics, but I will give it some credit and say that they did focus on like a lot of, especially at the end where new writers took over before the soft reboot, is I feel like they focused on Sonic and Sally's relationship was a lot of like trial by fire. Like, hey, we were 5-6 years old when Robotnik took over, and like we have worked together and been together and like considered each other like family like that whole time. And and at its best, it felt like a relationship like naturally blossomed out of that. Like even when the issues started to get really serious, or you had like, Robotnik's defeated, but now what do we do? And that's when like Sonic and Tails go off to try and find Ixis Naugus, and there is some like, well, bye, Sally. I mean, we'll be back, right? And I'm like, I'm sure you will. And, I remember like feeling that. And then, at its worst, it is, I mean, it's similar to Sad AM, but I mean, everybody knows like the Archie comics infamous reputation for furry soap opera melodrama. And I mean, like the least say about that the better, because it does get real bad. But that also involves some other characters on this list, so we'll save it for that.
That part is almost distracting from the actual relationship. Like, I think that's sometimes what people think of the most when they think of Sonic and Sally, is like, oh, remember that time where one character got shot, and oh, remember when Sally did this, remember when Sally slapped Sonic and it was a big thing, and I don't know, like, the worst writing of it kind of distracted from the natural relationship that you described. And sorry, there's a very good image that Luke just posted of when was it? Yeah, at the end of the Genesis arc, I believe it was.
Sonic is putting things back together with Chaos Control, and Sally knows it's going to be all right.
Shame it wasn't.
Nope, they all died. They're in hell now.
Gosh.
But I am glad that we went through this whole discussion without talking about the fact that some people just find Sally to be a really attractive character, and that sometimes factors into whether or not they think she should be Sonic's love interest, is because she's pretty and she's got the boots
and the fur.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
she got low,
like the song says.
So we've been mentioning that we have a list of Sonic love interests that we're going to be talking about, and I think it's appropriate and fun that that we put Sally so high up and so early on the list, because honestly, like, out of everybody that we're going to be talking about today, I really do think I think Sonic and Sally are pretty much, if there was to be like a pursuit of romance, I think they're the best case for each other, because we've already said so many times already that they really do balance each other out. I think if there was a storyline where there was just no Sonic but there was still freedom fighters, I still think Sally would be headstrong, but I'm not sure if she would be quite as outgoing and in the field as if Sonic was there to kind of bolster some courage, and at the same time, we've said it before, like, Sally helps Sonic literally slow down and think a little bit more. And I just think the balance between the two of them is great. And, like, we've also talked about the ups and the very downs of the Archie, Sonic and Sally romance. But whenever I think about their romance, I always think about like a couple issues, or I think even one issue, after Sonic gets back from his like year in space, after I think it was issue 150 where they had that big explosion, or one.
Yeah.
I always think about that issue where they come back and Sonic's like re-greeting everybody and saying hello to everybody, and then like Sally does the big slap because it seems it just there's a breakdown in the relationship, and it's interesting to have that dynamic there. And in that case, I think it kind of adds to the story, because like there's this new tension, but they still have to work together to save Knothole and sometimes the world.
Yeah, people, and I mean, God, I almost we've mentioned it in passing. It has been like people still hold on to that as like, that is when I started hating everything Sonic, because that ruined my life. But
yeah, people, and by which we mean Sonic fans, have opinions about that.
It's a weird story arc. I wouldn't even go to bat for like that it's particularly well written, that issue, but I do, revisiting it, get the like tension. It's Sonic is, because Sonic was lost. They called it Tossed in Space because Lost in Space is the TV show, but he was gone for several months, and then Relativity and all that, and he gets back home and people are like, no, you were gone for more than a year, dude. Like, we were pretty sure we would given you up for dead. And he's like, oh, well, I'm not dead. And then proceeds to be, from what I remember, like pretty flippant about it. And so the conflict between him and Sally like goes with like, there's also a big transition in her life where like, I can't remember exactly, but her dad, the king, like either wants her to, or he's very worried about like, Eggman's back, and is very worried about like, security, and like, hey, Eggman could wipe out Knothole and take us all out. And so like, I recall like Sally has a pretty justified breakdown and have the reaction she does. And I don't know, people just really latched onto that because they just don't like Sally, period. It wasn't that this pushed them over the edge. It's just they use it as ammo. And it's like, yeah, it's a bad story. It's from the bad parts of Archie, but like that, come on, man. The fact that people like still bring that up to like the artists and people that worked on it is ridiculous. And anyway,
this is actual proof as to why Sally Acorn, the fictional character, is a legitimately bad person in real life. and I will never let this go.
Yeah, it's very silly. At the end of the day, I really like Sally as a character. I think some of her best stuff, like I said, is in Sat AM and after they did some of the like soft reboots of Archie, just because it was like, hey, now we don't have so much baggage for this character. Like she doesn't have, we don't have to deal with all the like, God, the the source Acorn blood magic and all that stuff, because that does not really matter to her character at the end of the day.
Okay, well, I must admit I never watched Sat AM, but I did, however, live across the street from a 7-Eleven as a child, and I would crawl under their fence to get to it slightly faster. And occasionally they would carry the Archie comics. So
Okay, I was wondering where you were going with that. I didn't watch Sat AM, but I lived across the street from a 7-Eleven, and I think that's the same thing.
Yeah, and I really liked their Slurpees.
I remember getting, I first got a couple of my first Archie issues from that spinny comic rack in my local grocery store. So that's not too crazy a scenario.
Yeah.
So you at least like read a couple of stories that had Sally in it?
Yeah. No, I would pick them up when I could. There was a point later when I eventually would actually like order them and get them for like a year at a time. But I have far few in between memories of specific things. But one of the comics that I did pick up as a kid, going to 7-Eleven, I recall is like, I think it was like the 25 years later timeline. When,
oh my god!
When they're married and Sonic's a king.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like Sally from what I remember as someone with Sonic, right? I like you all said, I think she's a good balance in where Sonic is the man of action and she's more of like the leader of the freedom fighters who does the thinking and like the slower needed to be done things that Sonic might be too impatient to do. But I guess my critique of Sally would be ultimately if they are a couple, that does lead to Sonic becoming a king, and whether or not you like that as the end goal for his character is up to debate. But I mean, I like him as the adventurer, like I'm gonna go do my own thing guy. So I mean, I guess that's my one criticism of them as a pairing would be I don't think Sonic should necessarily be a royal in my eyes, but I'm not totally opposed to it. But
you were right behind the 8 ball though, because you jumped right into 25 years later, so you saw the worst possible version of that.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say, is that okay, here literally was one specific writer's intended future for Sonic and Sally, and it's the most boring nothing happens arc, I would argue, in the entire comic. That Sally spends her entire time like milling about the house talking to her other friends doing nothing, and Sonic spends it milling about talking to Knuckles about how, yep, I sure don't adventure anymore, and then oh man, it's so bad.
And then the Super Genesis wave happened and romance was no longer on the table unless it's Sally and another character, and I think I'm okay with that.
Yes, I totally, totally. The ultimate realization for Sally is where she realized, oh, I like a girl. Now I'm married to my computer. Good for her.
And you know what? That's valid these days.
Yep.
She wrote really into her computer's VTuber avatar, and relatable.
She's a tier 3 sub.
Good old Sonic. My God, these ladies are gay. Good for them.
Spam good for them in the chat.
Yeah. So, Amy Rose.
Oh yeah, we should probably move on to the other one. So,
the other one.
We were going chronologically, but we're talking about the two big ones. There's Sally Acorn, who we just discussed, and then there is Amy Rose, and we've actually talked about her a little bit at this point, so we might as well get this over with.
Bye. I want to hear Akaru's thoughts on this first.
Let's get Akaru's out of the way.
With Amy? Okay, well, I think as I stated, like, as a youth, Amy was like my girl media consumption. Like, she was the only like girl character from media that I watched. So when people were named Amy in real life, I was like, oh, I like them. But ultimately, like, I think that it's fine for her to be like, oh yes, I like Sonic, and Sonic's like, nah. But but I like Amy as a character. I think she's at her best, honestly, when she's not just I like Sonic, when she has like her moments in an adventure and stuff, where she's just showing that she's very kind-hearted and willing to see the best in people. And like even in adventure when Sonic's like, I need to kill this robot, and she's like, nope, don't kill this robot. This one helped me, and so she's willing to like be more than just I like Sonic and I'll do whatever he wants, but she's willing to like, you know, go against him if need be.
Yeah.
Not that she fights him or anything, but at least stands up to him and is like, no, that's not the good course of action here.
I like that because I think that's a good moment for Sonic, because he's like, well, okay, I trust you. Yeah, it is interesting to, you know, because we've talked about Sonic CD a lot, where she kind of does nothing. They have filled in those gaps to kind of give that classic version of Amy her own unique personality, but it really is adventure that, you know, she starts off her story reminiscing about Sonic CD getting, you know, snatched up by Metal Sonic and getting rescued by Sonic. And that was like codifying her like lifelong crush pursuit of Sonic. And then that whole game goes out of its way for her to like straight up, like, she might as well look at the camera and say to the player themselves that I am going to be a more independent person. I can take care of myself. I can't rely on Sonic, even if I still like him. And then they spent the next decade walking that back. Even by Sonic Adventure 2, do you want to throw around words like flanderized, how her character was, you know, dumbed down, quote unquote? It is my least favorite part about Amy, because I too liked her. I'm sure, like, similarly, it was like, oh yeah, she's the girl. Girls can be cool. Girl power, etc., etc. But then, I mean, as much as I do still like the show, like on the whole, like Sonic X is the worst about this. Like, breaking Amy's character down to just, where's Sonic? Why am I not with Sonic? Why is Sonic not my boyfriend? And oh, it just gets old, man. Like, not even to bring up, like, you know, the sexist, misogynist implications, because it's goofy. And I feel like it took a long time for them to finally start introducing like other aspects to her character. And Sega has realized that she needs to have more to her character. And I think are probably still trying to figure it out, because Sonic Boom Amy is probably the closest. But even then, I think you almost go too far in the other direction, where she is, you know, occasionally like the girl character who's the killjoy, who tells, you know, all the boys to quit being so dumb. We gotta be serious. Yeah. But, you know, stuff like Forces, which is pretty ham-handed, where she is like the one of the leaders of the resistance. Like, I think that's cool that she is, you know, kind of fulfilling a Sally role in that she is pragmatic. She is looking at the bigger picture. She is pointing like the heroes with powers, like where to go. Not that Amy also doesn't have like, I also like it when they lean into like, she has a big heavy hammer and beats the crap out of things. Like, that's cool too. I get why people like the Sonic Amy pairing, and this is going to sound a little mean, but I don't mean it in a, you know, in a serious way, but like Son Amy is the like peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread of Sonic pairings for me.
Yeah, Son Amy is keeping it within the race, and is that really what we want to the message we want to send with this song?
Well, it's just there. I don't think there's much to it. I think now, you know, like Luke is also pointing out that like Ian Flynn and Evan Stanley have basically clarified and said like Sega's position is like, it's there, but it's not going to be in the forefront again, as far as like the, you know, like I said in Sonic X, the Looney Tune pursuit of Sonic and him being like, ooh, no, yucky. And I'm glad, actually. You know, like we were saying before, like it still gets brought up, like especially in IDW. I think it's just the first couple of issues, Amy gets reintroduced and sees Sonic like take out a whole bunch of big robots. And there's like a whole wordless panel of her just going like, oh, before she catches herself. And I'm like, oh, well, that's cute. Like, you know, it's like, oh, it'll always be there, but she is definitely like moved past her goo-goo, you know, losing all control, only aspect of my character.
Yeah.
Her problematic fangirl days aren't quite as prominent anymore. And I feel like when you were talking about like that being the most prominent in stuff like Sonic X and the games during that time period, it, like as much as Amy was not a great character during that time, I do think it did reflect her canonical age of 12 when she was acting like that. Which is, I'm not, although Sonic ages are such a weird thing, honestly, to be, and I feel like that's something that they don't even like to acknowledge now. So
no,
I don't think
I think, you know, people pointed out, I think like some official documents have just stopped listing it because, I mean, at the end, I said it at the top, these are mascot, like Mickey Mouse characters, and it's that stuff is much sillier.
I do stand by like my thought earlier about me personally, I'm not really into the Son Amy romance angle anyway. Like, I don't know, just it's never clicked in my head. But if there ever was a place for it, I circle back to my thought earlier of I think current movie Sonic would probably be a good place to fit that into. I think there's room to explore it there. But otherwise, me personally, not really into Son Amy, and it might, you know what, IDW has also done a great job of characterizing Amy, so it might work there in the future, but with where Sonic is now culturally, I just don't think it would work in the comics right now either.
I just don't think they have, like, I'm sorry out there, Son Amy fans, I don't think their relationship is interesting enough. It's funny how she used to chase him around, and nowadays I think their friendship relationship is, you know, pretty nice. Like, as Jeremy was describing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it's really, like, interesting enough what their dynamic to really make for a good, like, romance. But like you said, like, maybe the movie is what changes that, because this is different characterizations. Now, I do want to mention there is STC Amy, who is a different character. As we've discussed in the past, completely different character altogether. Although starts off a bit like classic Amy, as you know her, like, oh, Sonic is my boyfriend, I think he's great, and oh gosh, Sonic, you're so good. And that developed over time to, haha, Sonic, hey, how's it going, darling? Oh, we're boyfriend and girlfriend, aren't we? Yeah, you love that, don't you? Shut up, Amy. Oh, God. I'm trying to save the world from Robotnik. Anyway, I'm going to go have an actual canonical relationship with a canary. See you later.
Yes. Yeah. I can't believe I mean, I've said it before. STC Amy, as far as like fleshed out Amy characters go, is my favorite because that is the best possible way you could approach like the 2 sentences of character she had in the classic days of, you know, is a girl like Sonic, and to where, yes, like you said, evolves to where she literally teases Sonic by telling people that, oh yeah, of course he's my boyfriend. And it's every time Sonic reacts like, you know, stop it, Amy, you're embarrassing me in front of my mates. And she has a quiet laugh about it to herself. And yes, that's my favorite Amy.
And if you deny it, I'll shoot you with my crossbow.
Yeah, the legitimate weapon. They didn't know about the hammer. What do we give her? An actual crossbow. Why not?
Dude, the crossbow's so dope.
It really is.
She's a deadeye with that thing too.
I think we've covered Amy for the most part.
I think so, yeah.
Like, that's a big topic. I'm sure we'll have an Amy Rose episode one day, but for now, as far as her relationship to Sonic is concerned, we've more or less covered it, unless we haven't, in which case, yell at us in the comments, please.
Yes.
We are begging for your interactions and anger. Actually not. Please be nice to us. We're very sensitive.
We're old and frail.
We've covered the big ones. Let's cover some of the other ones on the list. Like early on in the series, there was Breezie the Hedgehog, who we have discussed before.
Yes, I do think, I mean, even in both continuities, like in Adventures of Sonic, like she ends up with Robotnik Jr., the other, robot automaton. So that doesn't really work out. And then in, the new 252 Archie version, I would argue she absolutely sees Sonic as below her. Like, not really enough to like speculate on like that version of Breezy's like romantic inclinations, but absolutely, like, I think sees Sonic as like a child at best, and like a parasitic organism is worse.
And that Sonic wasn't interested in her anyway. Unlike Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog Sonic, it was just discovering girls.
Yes. Oh goodness. But yeah, either way, didn't work out for Sonic and Breezy, that's for sure. But Breezy's cool. That is, we covered those comics a while back, and that is one of my, like, oh man, what could have been was more of that version of Breezy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Akaru, you have an interesting relationship with Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog in that you're a young person who actually watched it growing up.
Yeah.
Did you actually get to see the Breezy episodes?
I don't believe I did. I owned like a couple VHSs of it, which I think were like mostly the first few episodes, and then I also caught it one time when I went on vacation to my uncle's, and I think it was on Disney Channel.
Oh yeah.
So I don't believe I actually know much about Breezy at all, to be honest.
Well, here's a picture of Breezy.
I like the colors.
What a picture.
This is a tall lady with not a traditional Sonic animal character look about her. Noticeably a red dress again, just like Madonna and the Jessica Rabbit sort of look going on here.
Her head sure is just a plain circle.
I was going to say it's a perfectly circular head.
Yeah, Breezy can be cool, but yeah, I don't think an ever a serious candidate for our boy Sonic.
Yeah,
and what we see here is
the cool
the new 52 version with her cool pantsuit,
power suit.
Breezy specifically, like good Archie Breezy, strikes me as the type of person who would use romance as like a political tool or an asset. Like like. Maybe she'll catch feelings for somebody, but for the most part, it's just like how do I profit out of this?
Yeah, a very what would you call it? A marriage by convenience, if anything.
Yes.
Well, that's Breezy. All right. Okay. Let's talk about her. It's time for Mina Mongoose, everyone. As Luke in the chat has posted a picture from, what was the name of the game again that we covered for our fan games episode?
Tale of Two Sonics.
Yes. Right, yes. The very melodramatic relationship between Mina the Mongoose and the Hedgehog she just met, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Oh man.
God, I love that story.
Yeah, me too.
A tale for the ages.
Let's talk about the canonical Mina Mongoose of the pre-Sega Genesis wave. Sega Genesis wave? Well, it might as well be. The point of this Archie comics where Cole Bollers was writing, there we go, that's Mina Mongoose. What do we say about Mina? She's got a nice design, I think.
Yeah. She fits right in as like Sonic character designs for sure.
Yeah.
You
mind if I go up to bat for her?
Go on, you want.
I mean, look, man, all I have to say is like the most interesting thing she does to me is get shot and doesn't die. So I would like to hear, she did mellow out after that. I would like to hear, yes, Jake, from someone who genuinely likes Mina.
Yep. So, hey everybody, I'm the one who does in fact genuinely like Mina as a character in the story. So I'll just go ahead and say right off the bat that I don't think Sonic and Mina work. I do think that like any budding romance that they had in the comics was kind of cute. Mostly, mostly because for Mina, I would say it was a little bit less stalkerish than Amy, like early Amy.
Yes.
But I do like a genuine like friendship relationship between Sonic and Mina, because I do like some of my favorite stuff from their arc was when Sonic was kind of teaching Mina how to control her speed, and I like that kind of mentor mentee kind of thing like strikes me as very interesting. And I think that gives a little bit more credence to a budding romance because of just the simple fact that they got to actually spend time together, almost in a similar way as how Sonic and Sally spend time together, in that they're working together towards something.
It's hard not to see Mina in that part of the comics as we need more romantic drama. Here is a girl that is fast who likes Sonic but isn't Sally. But
that was what they wrote her to be.
Yes,
that's
exactly
what her reason for existing is.
Yes. Yeah, she was definitely a plot device just to add dramatic tension. And in this case, from what I've said earlier, this is one of those cases where I don't think romance necessarily added a whole lot to the story, just because the way that Mina's romance was introduced in this was pretty artificial. And Jeremy does have a point that like one of the most interesting things that happens to Mina is that she gets shot. But Mina does go on to have a pretty good, confident character before the Sega Genesis wave.
We call it that now.
Yeah. Where she actually becomes a very popular musician and pop star in Knothole, and I'm assuming most of Mobius.
Yeah, I think they even make a point that like she writes protest songs to blast like all over Mobius against the Eggman Empire, which is a cool detail.
Yeah. And Luke is sharing so many images. There's I think it's fair to point out that like as far as like Archie canon, there is like a possible future that they hint at a lot where Mina and Tails get together, and I actually I like that idea. I think that has legs, especially very fast legs. That
yes,
boo, get off the stage.
Mina does have super speed.
I like that idea. But overall, Sonic and Mina, I think very good mentor and student relationship, and I think later on good supporting friendship, but romantically I think they moved past it at a fairly decent pace.
They had their drama and it ended with a bang. Kapow.
Jeremy would just go on and on with this.
But no, I don't despise Mina. I just think her origins were pretty trite. But and like you said, she evolved into a pretty likable character.
But as far as her romance is concerned with Sonic, she had her shot.
Oh my god.
Good night, everybody.
Akaru, now we know you didn't read much of the Archie comics. Do you have any opinions about Mina Mongoose?
I like her boots.
Yeah, they're very good.
What about her gloves? Are her gloves good?
Her gloves are pretty good. I'm specifically looking at the one that looks like more modernish art. But yeah, I like her gloves. They're cool. But yeah, that's all I got to say.
Okay.
No, that's only really you've got to go on right now is the appearance. And to be fair, that's all I had when I was like playing Sonic Mega Collection and looking at all the covers of Archie. I was like, oh, I like this character design. I hope she has a good story.
Well, later on.
But Mina's cool, I think. I like...
Yeah.
But she's of a time, and sadly we're not going to see her again. But
yeah.
Speaking of Archie issues that were of a time, I feel like the best thing for these next couple is just to throw them all together because it was all basically the only son of a gun. There it is. Basically the only basis for these two. And you know, I'm saying that like people can ship characters that like don't even like meet each other in canon. That's different. But the basis for these next few characters is one I might argue might be the worst Archie Sonic arc, but like not to spend too much time going into it, but it's a entire arc what's revealed at the end that the evil version of Sonic from an alternate dimension has replaced our version of Sonic and has proceeded to sexually harass the entire main female cast. So you've got
basically
Bunnie Rabbot, Rouge the Bat, the Archie version of Rouge, and then at the end it kind of ends up Fiona Fox, who is a character with a sordid history. But man, the only thing I can say about it is that it's terrible because everyone is out of character. Like, these are like, especially Bunnie, like I'm not going to like relitigate this, but like it's very out of character for both of them, even though Sonic is the evil Sonic. But for Bunnie to just be like, oh yeah, sure, sugar, let's hook up. The less said about the writer who was Ken Penders, like his afterwards comments on that, the better, because it just makes it 100% worse. So
Yeah.
no, I don't think Bunnie Rabbit and Sonic belong together just because of, this one story. And the thing with Fiona Fox I actually kind of like is that she realizes she was only attracted to the bad parts of Sonic, and so ends up going with Scourge to be a bad guy because he's literally the evil Sonic. So I like that part of it, but again, there's a whole arc where like, Tails had a crush on the robot version of Fiona and then got mad at Sonic when the real one showed back up, and it's a whole thing, man. It's a bunch of issues of comics that it's hard to dwindle down into a couple sentences.
All I can say is Fiona Fox and Sonic did have an extended relationship for a while, and that's about all we can say about her in terms of like whether or not Sonic should have a relationship. Well, if it's with Fiona Fox, probably not.
Yeah. It's really funny when she comes back with, evil Sonic Scourge, and Sally walks straight up to her and slugs her in the guts. It's very funny.
Yeah, it's probably best we rush through this one because, again, Akaru probably has zero context for these. I mean,
I actually do know about Fiona Fox a little bit.
Oh my goodness!
It's mostly Tails being mad about it, but like not an in-depth knowledge base.
And yeah, like I said, like evil Sonic also hits on Rouge, and she's like, okay. And that's about it. Yeah. And, the aforementioned, like, you can occasionally reply to her flirty dialogue in Sonic Chronicles, but I feel like we would have to talk about Rouge as a character on the whole, and, like, that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
When it comes to Rouge's romance, that's, like, Sonic is, like, at the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
Yes. He is.
And
he's
on the
too
top
much
of that list
work.
is the Master Emerald, I think. So.
Yes. Sonic would be too much of a hassle for Rouge. She would get annoyed with him like right away.
Yeah.
This is not a condemnation of Rouge the Bat as a character. Everyone will me say
Oh,
she's
no.
not a great relationship, a great love interest for Sonic. She just isn't because she's a great character. Anyway.
Yes. Exactly.
Let's rush along to the next one. And speaking of rush, nice joke there, Luke. Thanks for feeding that one to me. Okay, so this is not an actual Sonic love interest character, I don't think. But let's talk about Blaze the Cat, because some people do ship them. And by that, I mean, sometimes I see that meme of the two, like, rushing into each other and that final battle in Sonic Rush, and then they start making out in the most disgusting way possible.
See, I've only seen the version where Sonic wins the struggle and goes,
"Have a nice ball, you stupid bitch."
I love that one.
Oh my goodness.
It's funny because it comes out of nowhere, and like the person is like bit crushed their voice down to sound like a DS, so like it sure as hell sounds like a clip, but no.
Oh my gosh.
So I have this weird thing where I have never been able to find it in like official materials, but when Sonic Rush came out, I thought for certain there was something that said that Blaze was like Sonic's alternate universe counterpart.
I think that was the implication, at least.
Yeah, I think they have walked that back, especially like after Sonic 06 kind of screwed up that whole concept. And that Blaze, if anybody, is more comparable to Knuckles than like, you know, being a different universe as Sonic. But I don't know, it's one of those where I'm like, I don't know. They seem like they're too it's not opposites attract. For Sonic and Blaze, for me, it seems like they would repel each other because, Blaze is very self-serious sometimes, and Sonic is the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, all you've really got is the fact that they are the heroes of their world, essentially, and maybe they relate to each other on that, but I think that's more of a friendship thing than anything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like you said, like, people can make all the cute art they want. That's fine. Yeah. That's not hurting anybody.
I think they are two good fighting companions.
I do remember, so maybe some people interpreted the last scene of Sonic Rush, where they have that moment before they go back to their own worlds, as romantic. I just see it as a moment of respect between two people that sort of see a lot of themselves in each other. I think it's lovely. And whenever they meet up in IDW, it's always lovely too.
Yeah. Yep. And yes, as Luke points out, I see people pairing up Silver and Blaze much more than Sonic and Blaze, because he's a... Man, I just love it when Silver's a dumb baby and he needs somebody to guide him through life.
That's all the time, almost. That is his life. Any thoughts on Blaze the cat? Akaru, I know you've got thoughts about Silver the Hedgehog. He is your boy.
Silver is my baby boy. I love him. I mean, I don't have any Sonic Blaze opinions. Even Silver and Blaze, I mostly just see them as friends, but occasionally I'll be on Twitter and someone retweets some cute Silver and Blaze holding hands, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Good for them.
That's too Luke for Twitter.
I very much relate to that feeling of oh, it's not for me, but that sure is cute, ain't it?
Yeah.
Now,
just go for it.
So we've mentioned her before.
Speaking of Silver's debut,
there was this year that we all experienced together, and it was the year 2006, and that was when Sega decided, hey, let's go back and bring out the worst game imaginable. No, that's not actually what they did, but you'd think that.
Somebody wrote it on the Sonic Team official whiteboard.
They wanted to take Sonic back, not even to his roots. They wanted to give you the new Sonic for the new generation. So they decided, this is the one that we're going to call Sonic the Hedgehog. So people go back and think, this is the new starting point for Sonic. And how are we going to do that? We're going to give him a princess to save. There's a lot to say about Sonic 06, but there's Princess Elise it's hard to deny that she is written as a love interest to Sonic the Hedgehog, and that is a thing that games journalists and people across the internet will never let go for the rest of Sonic's existence.
Which I empathize with people who are sick of that getting brought up. At the same time, man, it's really bad.
Yeah.
I think I can't remember if it's been on the show. I have tried to at least narrow my opinion down to I see what they were trying to do. Elise's character is interesting, and it's a very she's been sheltered as a princess, and also has this tragic past with the Iblis and all, and has had people tell her for her entire life she can't cry, which, again, one of the things that's weird is that, because if she cries, she'll release the demon and kill everybody. And Sonic is the first person she meets who is has none of that baggage. He is a free spirit. He is the blue streak, the running on the wind. He has everything that you could argue that, everything that she could possibly wish her life could be. And so I see where you could do of course she's going to be infatuated with the idea of that. But yeah, turning it into even a storybook princess falling in love with the commoner thing, it's just, I feel like they botch it in every way possible. It's super weird. It's, and Sonic 06 is Sonic 06, so it's very stilted and awkward, and man, I won't say I hate Elise though, as a, I wouldn't snap her out of existence, because again, I was saying, I think you could do it and pull it off correctly or well, or better than they did. But Man, this just ain't it for me, dude. Like, her closing credits theme song is ridiculous.
Did you not describe it as the song of a princess who's really horny?
Yes, and I will say I do like. I think it's Triple Q, who's a musician artist, pretty funny on Twitter. Has their anytime they do fan art of Elise, it's straight up like push to, crank up the dial to 11, like yandere, tsundere, crazy, like homicidally crazy about being in love with Sonic. I think that's pretty funny. If you're going to bring it up in this day and age.
This is one of those things where Sonic is written as the Sonic we know these days, as being like not really interested in romance or anything like that, and he's just going about his free as the wind lifestyle and doing what he believes in. And yeah, he's got this human woman really clearly romantically interested in him. So I don't think it makes for a good relationship in that respect. Now I do wonder if maybe, say, like, Sonic's place was a character like a Zidane from Final Fantasy IX, this kind of thing would be seen cute, because it does, the wild and reckless youth and the stifled princess is very much Final Fantasy IX a bit. But I only say that because she looks like a Final Fantasy character in one of the bad games.
Yeah. I would even say like there's, and I mean, that is a trope, and I'm not saying that is a negative, but because, yeah, I think of like, Final Fantasy X or Disney's Aladdin is kind of the similar dynamic of that, of the, the very sheltered, not stuck up, but, and the worldly protagonist. And bringing out the best in each other, but not in Sonic 06.
The contrast is too stark, I think, like, from a visual standpoint. She's this very realistic, but somewhat, like, anime-ish designed woman, with, I don't know. She's a human. She's a very realistic human. And Sonic is looking at his most floppy kind of mascot suit self.
Yes.
In this game. This image I see of him literally princess carrying her. His big floppy nose is bouncing there, and I'm supposed to think that she finds that romantically attractive.
I mean, it takes all kinds, man. But
that is true. I shouldn't be too judgmental.
The visual aspect is done better in other games. Like, yeah. we're gonna pay passing mention, but like Shahra and Sonic look fine standing next to each other because it's a more refined anime style. And same with she's not on this list because, well, spoilers for that game, but what's her name? Merlina in Black Knight.
Yeah, we didn't include Merlina because she's actually, spoilers, a villain. And there's something there, but it's not.
Like another like humanoid character that looks perfectly fine standing next to a Sonic. And yeah, like Luke says, like Sonic Unleashed, the game after this, like I love those cartoony humans. So
yeah.
Well, they did give us a cartoony version of that in New 252 Sonic, Archie Sonic. So
good for Elise. She got a little bit of a redemption appearance in that.
Yeah, too. After having to run across the Windows background of Sonic.
Yes.
Was supposed to be a really touching scene.
Oh yeah, that the XP default wallpaper, that is sure what that looks like.
When I look at Sonic, I just want to just wrap my mouth around his entire nose.
Whoa. Oof. Okay. I need to hear Akaru tell me about your experience with this game.
Well,
like, you don't have to go into detail, but it's the stuff of legends on this podcast.
Yeah. As you may know, I have a relationship with this game. It's not a perfect game, maybe, if that's controversial. But I mean, this game, okay, I'll do a little bit of backstory. I know you said that I don't need to go into super detail, but so in Sonic Adventure 2 for the Dreamcast, there was a little billboard in the Chow Garden which would like have a link for like the Sonic website. And so as a child, when I got on the computer, I wanted to go to the Sonic website. And I remember seeing this trailer for Sonic 06 and thinking, this is the stuff of legends. This is the modern Sonic. And I eventually got my hands on the game. And I enjoyed it. And I was like, wow, so glad that was only $5. That was a great purchase. So with like Elise, I don't think she's inherently a bad character. I think there's good ideas there, whether the execution's done well or not. And the Sonic romance part, I guess, not really my favorite aspect. Although I've seen fan art of Elise as like a more Sonic character traditionally, and I'm like,
Oh, this one.
and I'm like, if they just did that, I feel like she'd be a lot more okay as a romance interest, of course.
Yeah. I like this art, actually.
Yeah, I think it's a good art.
It really is, because we talked about Madonna and how that kind of works because it's silly. But, like we pointed out, she is of the time, a 2006, fully rendered, human lady with, visible pores. And it just looks weird.
It's very out of place.
I definitely agree that I don't hate her as a character.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have been done better.
Yeah. That's generally my stance too.
I do have one question about your playthrough of you just didn't notice any of the glaring issues. I gotta at least ask, when you got to, because you played it on I'm assuming the Xbox?
The PlayStation, actually.
Oof.
Okay, so the same version I played. So when you got to the load times and it was 60 to 90 seconds in between screens of text, it just didn't bother you like it maybe did me.
Listen, I definitely noticed the load times, but I was just like, damn, my PlayStation must be getting old.
Oh my gosh.
All right, I believe it. I believe it. I very much appreciate that outside perspective.
Yeah, but that was definitely the most glaring flaw I noticed with the game. Was just sure it's taken a while, but the actual gameplay though, not too many hiccups. Weirdly enough,
maybe you're just a really good gamer.
I'm the target audience.
And I hope man. I hope that we're not making fun of you over any Sonic 06 stuff. Okay,
no.
Good. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
Do not worry. No offense taken. I'm not dying on the cross.
This guy gets made fun of all the time, so it's fine.
True.
He loves being bullied.
Yeah, it is one of those. I'm very glad that there are some very dedicated fans and people like Project 06 trying to just bring that game more in line with what people expect from a good playing Sonic game, I guess is a way to lay that out there, because it is not my favorite Sonic game in any capacity. Goodness gracious knows, but it is that for some people. So I'm glad people are working on that.
Even as someone who enjoyed the game, I know that I had a unique experience and will not revisit it until there exists a more polished product, because I don't want to tarnish that memory.
Yeah,
you're gonna play Project 06 and be like, yes, just how I remembered it.
Nothing changed.
Yeah.
Okay, before we move on to the next one, I feel like it's worth just polling this. Are we that opposed to human on Mobian character romance, or is it just Elise in this circumstance?
They're all goofy, Mickey Mouse cartoons. I think the what is it called? The Harkness rule applies.
I think Luke pointed out that, it depends on the game and art style, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah. It's less about the ethical implications than it is like you said, the art style just looks weird.
I think people take the most exception with that and the fact that she literally kisses Sonic. It's not meant to be a fully romantic kiss. It's meant to be a revive him from literal death kiss, and it's all it's
a Sleeping Beauty kiss,
and he is dead at the time, which you could say makes it worse, but if you're okay with Roger Rabbit, and we're going to bring up her again, Jessica Rabbit, then I feel like you could be okay with Sonic having depending on the character, depending on how it works, I think it'll be fine. So let's take a brief moment to acknowledge Shahra from Sonic and the Secret Rings, a game I have not fully played, but I have seen all the cutscenes of. her, like, I think the biggest thing for her in the fandom is everyone acknowledges the final scene in the game where Sonic wishes for a mountain of handkerchiefs so that she's got a place to cry. And there is actually context for that, like from the beginning of the game, the first cutscene.
Yes.
But it is very silly out of context.
Yes, it's silly out of context. It does make sense. Also, my opposition to Shahra and Sonic ending up together is that the entire story of the game is she is on a real bad rebound from her ex-boyfriend Eraser Jin. So even if Sonic was, I don't think he would take advantage of that vulnerable state because she needs some alone time after that adventure.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's fine. She's a cool character. Nothing against her, but I don't think there's anything there.
All I will say is, from watching the game again, I do like their dynamic. I think it's quite fun. This is what, in the storybook games, say what you will about them as games, Sonic has a bit more sass, like back in the old days, and he's very headstrong, and usually the character he's teaming with has to be like, oh, Sonic, you silly boy, what are you doing? But it makes for a fun dialogue, which during that time was hard to come by in Sonic games, I think. So having this sort of like character where he's like, I'm gonna go do the thing, Sonic, please don't do the thing, I'm doing the thing. It's always fun.
Sonic, what do you have there? A knife. No.
Wait, I'm Merlina. I gave that to you.
And it talks to you.
Yep, it sure does.
I just like female genie characters. That's why my stance is on this. I can feel like at least one person on our podcast feels the same way.
I think she's cute.
That's Shahra. Yeah. Like, if you haven't played the game, I feel like that's the best thing we can ask of you. Do you think she's a cute character?
Yeah, I played it. I remember liking her as a character. But,
oh, right. Okay, you have an opinion on this.
Not a major one. I mean, she's cute. Her head's still about the size of one of Sonic's eyes, so it's a bit weird.
Great observation.
Yep.
When you say one of Sonic's eyes, do you mean like the whole monogoggle, or just like
just
half?
one of the half mono.
Yeah, one of the sclera. Oh Lord.
I'm glad Akaru's here.
I kind of feel like we kind of hashed out the Ghost Maiden's obsession with Sonic on our Halloween special. Yeah, like Luke is bringing up, like the original ending to that was Sonic turns back to normal instead of the werehog, and La like literally slaps him because she was only interested in his Wolfman form, which is, I think that's pretty cute. But yeah, La herself would say, no, I'm not interested in a stinky blue hedgehog.
That's fair. And you know what? I feel like it's just a case of she is the only romantic interest for Sonic the Werewolf.
Yes. And even then, Sonic himself is completely oblivious, very in character.
If you can't handle me at my Sonic, you don't deserve me at my werehog.
So yeah, her loss, I suppose.
Weirdly enough, it almost harkens back to the Fiona Fox whisker.
Oh my god,
yeah, it kind of does.
Wow, yeah, she only likes the bad boy Sonic.
The bad,
Parallels.
big, furry monster Sonic. Well, we've gotten into what her preferences are.
Tall, broad-chested, etc., etc.
Arms.
Teeth, you, etc.
And then our last two on the list is, these are, again, kind of like Blaze, like there's not much to support in official stuff for different reasons, but I do kind of like when people pair up like Knuckles and Sonic, and Shadow is a cool character. It is hard for me to think of any canon portrayal of Shadow, or I shouldn't say canon, in-character portrayal of Shadow that would ever want to, like, be with Sonic romantically. I think it's fine as a concept. I think, again, like, lots of fan art is super cute, but maybe that's just my brain thinking of, like, even, like, Sonic Adventure 2 Shadow, where he is at his peak, like, I'm the coolest, and, it'll be a day to die for, Like, I don't know if he would want to spend that long with Sonic. like somebody, and I'm sure someone has out there, like feel free to send me a link, has written like a long form story of like Shadow realizing he's Sonic's rival but is there something more? You know what I mean? But and also like we put Sonic and Knuckles on here because I do think that's pretty cute. Like I could see again is like, oh, you know, they're friendly rivals and also have very like opposing personalities. Again, kind of like Sonic and Blaze, is that I could see that working more as far as those two guys hanging out together. But yeah, like as Luke is pointing out, like the tete-a-tete that Sonic and Knuckles have is very cute. Can be very cute.
I mean, like, if they ever did get married, they'd just be able to send out Sonic and Knuckles and cordially invite them to their wedding.
And the exact logo font. Sonic and Knuckles, and you are invited. But then, yeah, like, how would that work? Like, Sonic's not going to want to move to Angel Island, and Knuckles isn't going to leave the Master Emerald, his current spouse, so...
All of this is just speculation, because Sega are never going to do this. Nope. So.
No, and I mean, we don't have to, get into that, but yeah, nothing wrong with pairing a couple of guys together. No. If I do say so myself.
I'm kind of with you, Jeremy, about Sonic and Shadow. I think we all know that it's a pretty popular pairing on like, just forums and Twitter and community and stuff like that. I really don't like. I definitely see them as like true rivals. Like they will work together, but they're also, if one of them like looks at each other or sneezes at each other the wrong way, they're gonna fight.
Yes.
As far as like Sonic and Knuckles, the only like if it were to become romantic, the only relationship I could imagine is like kind of a comedic take where like they have feelings for each other and they love each other, but they're also kind of like the gym bros who compete with each other all the time. Like I can do more push-ups than you, I can lift more weights than you, kind of thing.
I could do more reps than you, bro, but I know you could beat me because I believe in you, bro.
The only canonical example of Sonic and Shadow ever working is this one panel from one of the recent IDWs. This one, Shadow catches Sonic from that ride in White Park, and what a lovely, cute image that is.
Yes, and Sonic really leans into it, and Shadow is just... I like to imagine Shadow just like does not see it at all, like Sonic's sarcasm, his, because he's like, oh, hi, Shadow, nice to see you, and he's just, what? Shut up, I'm busy. Which is, I mean, that is my favorite dynamic for them as well, is that Sonic, like, tries so hard with his own like charms and jokes, and Shadow rarely responds, but when he does, it's really funny, like the aforementioned it'll be a date to die for. Hey, that's my line, sexy. So yeah,
stop twirling your finger in my chest hair.
Yeah.
It's that image and this animated GIF, which is going to be great for the people listening to the podcast, that I think of when I think of Sonado, and it's the Who Wants to Play Among Us. It's a very lovely animation of Sonic and Shadow kissing.
What?
With the text above saying Who Wants to Play Among Us. I see that on Discord all the time, and that is Sonado.
Yep. Now, is it Sonado or Sonado? I've never nailed that down. I guess it's personal preference.
Yeah, someone's going to be yelling at us right now for not using the correct pronunciation for their shift name. And
we said them both. So
it's Sonado, like the tornado.
That Sonado is carrying a car.
And my husband is in it. No, I do want to reiterate, we've said it several times, but yes, we are not making fun of anyone here. We are laughing with you.
Yes.
As far as coming up with these scenarios, and yes, now that animation has completely broken my brain. So.
Same here.
Yeah, Akaru, do you have anything to say on this topic?
I mean, it goes without saying, but there's no other of these ships have a game named after them, so Sonic and Knuckles is clearly the winner.
Amen. Yep. Shadow got his own solo game, and that's it. Nobody.
So I do want to bring up, we don't have to go into this at all, but when we were formulating this idea for this episode, I jokingly referred to like Sonic and Eggman as a pair.
Oh yeah,
there was a discussion there, I think.
Yes. I almost do an own separate thing, but I do think that there was some like potential for almost a, like how Vegeta looks at Goku, where like he hates his guts, but secretly deep down he's like, but he's the best of us and I love him. I hate him. You know what I mean? Like you could do a thing with Eggman where he, kind of similar to what I said about Elise, like Eggman wants to take over the world, but secretly like he admires how much like freer and happy Sonic is without having to take over the world. So not sure if I'm ready to dip into Sonic Eggman romance, but I would be interested in approaching it from that direction for sure. Like the friendly are not it's not rivals, but the frenemies thing that they have sometimes where like the world is not on the line is also pretty cool. I like that. There's a couple of Sonic X episodes where they just sit down and like have a conversation.
Wasn't it also in Sonic X, like, the culmination of the first season where the giant robot essentially goes rogue and starts and almost kills Sonic, and Eggman's like, oh, no, I didn't want this.
Yeah, he kind of is. He's pretty concerned. I wouldn't say like, in the original text, he's all broken up about it if Sonic dies, but he is very much like, I wasn't gonna go this far. Sorry. Oh boy.
Or maybe he's like, that's not fair. I want to do it with my bare hands.
Yeah, maybe. Well, there is also, if you want to skip forward in Sonic X, like the it's getting shared around a lot lately, but the Dark Super Sonic in the Meta X saga, where Eggman comes in and basically says like, look, Sonic, you're better than this. You need to calm down. This is not how you do things.
Oh, yeah.
Leave this for the bad guys like me, okay? And I think that's pretty cute too.
It all depends on the continuity, I think, because obviously STC Robotnik is like, I want him to die immediately! But then there's Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog Robotnik, who says he doesn't want to kill Sonic, I just want to hang him in my dungeon so I can gloat at him. And I feel that's the most sexually charged thing that we've heard so far.
I mean, we say it every time. He is canonically the world's sexiest fat man. God bless Adventures of Sonic Robotnik.
We may have missed like various popular Sonic romantic interests, but the point here isn't to go through every single one, just like the most noteworthy ones, like Eggman. The important thing here is to just get an idea of what works for Sonic romantically, and I don't know if we've come to like a really, I don't know, solid conclusion here. Like, who do we see as like the top romantic interest for Sonic? I guess it depends on the continuity, but who is it, if anyone?
I mean, like I said, I kind of gave it away. I'd say nobody. Like, I'm perfectly fine with Sonic, like, going, having his core group of friends, but just not ending up with anybody that way. I think it in most continuities, it works better like that because of his nature and personality but like I said, hey, you can like what you like when it comes to Sonic the Hedgehog pairings. Like Lucas said, like the closest to canon is probably Amy, but I think we've discovered that like even Sega does not want to fully commit to that anytime soon because it ties both of the characters down to too much.
Luke did say in the chat that it is pretty vanilla, but that's wrong. That's Vector's love interest.
Yeah.
It depends on the continuity, I think, though. Like, when we're talking about the main ones, that's it. But if you're talking about, like Satayem is inescapable, Sally every day of the week. We've talked about why. Yeah. But that's Satayem Sonic, who's a different Sonic.
Yeah, I think it really does just come down to the medium of entertainment that Sonic is in, and because each of those has different freedoms and different restraints that is inherent to that medium. And so like I think in general, as of where we are now, I think Sonic without a relationship is perfectly fine, and that'll be fine for quite a while. But in the future, at some point, there might be room for maybe like a spark, a hint of it.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I've said this whole show is like I feel like it could be done properly. I just haven't seen it yet.
While I personally agree that mainline Sonic doesn't have any like ideal relationship right now, love interest, if you're the kind of person who ships Sonic with your OC or yourself, go right ahead. Like if that's your 100%. Ideal Sonic relationship, you live your truth and seek your own joy, go for it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of and even if you just like ship Sonic with any other character and you're upset at the fact that we don't think, like we disagree that Sonic should have like a relationship in the mainline games, whatever. Do whatever you want. It's Sonic's not real.
I talked about a lot of like, I just can't see it in character. It's like, well, when you're doing your own thing, you don't have to write them in character necessarily. That could be, your view of the whole thing. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. people that do ship their OCs with canon characters are the most powerful people in the world. So go for it.
Do you have any final thoughts on Sonic romances there, Akaru?
I think I share the general sentiment of he doesn't need a romance, but I think what's been done best with him, and possibly worst with him, has been Sally, so...
yeah.
That is correct.
The best and the worst, I love it.
Yeah.
It's got that depth.
Yeah.
I do like to think sometimes, even the canon itself does not say this, but after the Genesis Wave reboot, I do like to think that if you kept all the baggage, it's like, they ended up fine. Sonic realized he doesn't need to be in a committed relationship, and Sally realizes she doesn't like boys. So it all worked out in the end.
No, Sonic shouldn't be dating because he is my son, and I refuse to let him out of the house until he is grown up. It's a school
night.
The next Sonic movie is crazy.
Oh my god, that's what it's going to be! Like what Jake was saying, but Tom's going to be like, are you sure this Amy Rose character? I don't know. I don't think you should be dating girls. Oh my god, that's legitimately what they're going to do. It's going to be great.
Oh boy.
What about that nice Knuckles boy down the street?
So we went through this whole episode and we didn't have... we started off saying, should Sonic have a romance? And we decided no. So that was a waste of time.
No, not wasted time with good conversation and good friends.
Oh, most definitely.
This is a topic that could change. Maybe like tomorrow they'll introduce like this great new female or any Sonic character that we're like, whoa, that's Sonic's actual canon romantic interest. Hey, let's go.
Yeah. Like I said, hey, I'm keeping an open mind. It's just I have hesitancies from the past. But this has been a really fun discussion. I'm glad like you said, this was more of a whatchamacallit. This was less like, let's do some research and learn more things. Let's just talk about goofy shit we already know.
I joked earlier that this is like our most podcasty podcast that we've done so far.
Doesn't hurt to do ones like this every now and then.
Oh yeah
when we can figure out the format.
Man, Sonic romance, we really talked about that for a while. And you know what? We joke about it, but screw it. Romance is a topic. I think it's something worth talking about. I was hesitant to do this, but that's why I brought one of my most chill friends on the podcast, Akaru, who I know wouldn't go completely nuts over this.
Oh, I'm pissed.
Oh no, he's been no. Sorry, I forgot he's Canadian. He sort of like bottles this stuff up.
That's how we make the syrup.
Concentrated hatred.
But this kind of episode would not have worked if we weren't all as chill and comfortable or talking to each other as we were now. If this was hosted by just about any other group of Sonic fans, there's a chance it would have descended into war, blocking, and everyone hating each other by the end. I don't think that's happened this time.
And I mean, I know that's out there, but like, you can curate your experience to avoid people who like getting in fights about Sonic ships. So yeah,
and you should.
Mm-hmm.
But that will do it for this very romantic edition of Sonic, our Sonic podcast. That was fun. What have we got here? Let's all plug our socials. I am Falero. You can find me at Falero on most social media. That's FAULERRO.
You gotta love that jingle.
And I'm Jeremy. My Twitter is Great Job Jeremy. That's GR and the number 8. And you can find me as Game Buddy just about everywhere else. And sometimes there's a 1, 2, 3 at the end. Depends on if, Game Buddy was taken. But that's me.
I'll fight them for you. Get that name back here. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rock the Jake, and you can find me on Twitch at Mr. Rock the Jake.
And I'm Akaru. You can find me on Twitter. I dress up as fictional characters sometimes.
Dope.
You can find me at LEGITMINT.
Don't you do the twitching sometimes?
I do the twitching sometimes as well, but it's linked there, so whatever. If you want to find it, it's there.
All in one convenient package.
Everybody go raid his stream.
Special thanks as always to Amy Waters for the use of our theme song from the album Gotta Go Slow. You can check out more of her work on YouTube and Bandcamp, and you should. It's great.
and please also go follow her on Instagram and Twitter.
And please remember to subscribe, review, share, find us on the internet, tell everyone that you like the podcast, because we like doing it, and we'd like if more people listen to it if possible, but maybe by the time this comes out you will be, in which case, thank you. But next episode, we're moving on to a different medium. We're talking about books, but not just any old books. We're talking about the Sonic Golden books. Now, I don't have much experience with these because I'm British. What's going on with these fellas?
Well, these were, I guess they're kind of famous. Maybe when we do the episode, we'll get into the history of Golden Books, but a lot of like really well illustrated, but like kids books, like little kids books, but they're all like fully illustrated. They're quite nice looking at these, Sonic ones. And, we want to talk about some of the like other Sonic storybook novels, in the future, but we thought we'd start off like literally incredibly easy. These will be fun because I don't think I've ever read all of these. I do remember the one with about Sonic's shoes, I think, keep catching on fire from running, and he gets new ones. That's my vague memory of one of them.
Wow, spoilers. I'm glad that we're starting off with the baby books and we can work our way up to the big kid books.
Yeah, the true connoisseur picks of Martin Adams.
I mean, that's what I meant when I mean like the real big kids books. But this is a nice start. So join us next time if you have nostalgia for those books, or even if you don't and you just like hearing us talk about Sonic things, because we do it a lot. But thank you for joining us, everyone, on this romantic episode of the podcast. I have been Falero.
I'm Game Buddy.
I'm Rock the Jake.
And I'm Akaru. Marriage? No way.
Oh, thank you so much.